Hello and welcome everyone to March Mystery Madness. I have two, not one, but two mystery books to talk to you about today. Stay tuned. Hi everyone and welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I'm Miss Thomas. If you're new here, please subscribe. I upload videos on Wednesdays and Sundays, sometimes Fridays, but I've made a commitment to talk about books on Wednesdays and Sundays. So if you like to talk about books or you like to hear about books, then this is a good channel for you. Now, let me tell you, there's a lot going on in March. It's a fantastic month. First of all, it's middle grade March. So we're going to, throughout BookTube, a lot of booktubers are talking about the different books, the different young adult books that are out there. And I'm thrilled about that because as a high school teacher, that's originally why I began this channel, was to try and find books that I could talk about that my students might be interested in. So there's some wonderful videos out there about middle grade books. And please go check out my videos. I am going to be talking about some middle grade books, and I already have talked about some books. I have so far reflected on books from my childhood, books from the 70s that I enjoyed that are still available today. And in upcoming videos, I'll be talking about some more recent, more current middle grade books. But this video, I'm actually in the middle of two other projects. So Middle Grade March is one project I'm doing, and two other projects are March Mystery Madness, which I love mysteries. That's my favorite genre. So of course I had to hop on and talk about March Mystery. But also I'm doing Booktubers Made Me Read It. And every so often, if a fantastic booktuber that I know and love talks about a book, I go out and get it and talk about that booktuber and the book that they recommended. Because it's just something I really enjoy, learning about different books from different booktubers. So this month, since it's Mystery 2x2 and I'm talking about a booktuber, I thought I'd combine them. And I'm going to talk about two books, not one, two books recommended by Alice over at Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. I love Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. So if you haven't seen her channel, then definitely you're in for a treat if you check out her channel. And I want to tell you, Alice did a series over Christmas break, I guess it was around December, Christmas time anyway. She did a series with Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl, where they talked about if you like this movie, you might like this book. And I was just enthralled. I thought that was the most clever idea. And I loved that she had that idea. So I said, hey, Alice, if you could tell me what book I might like, since my favorite Christmas movie is Fred Claus, I would be very grateful. And Alice did a fantastic video recommending a book just for me, because my favorite Christmas movie is Fred Claus. And the book she recommended is the first one I'm going to talk about, Gone for Good by Harlan Coben. Now, if you know me at all, you know that I am a major Harlan Coben fan. I love Harlan Coben books. And actually, I've met Harlan Coben. I paid to hear him speak. He was talking about, at the time, his book Runaway. It was about to come out, or maybe it had come out. And I paid for a ticket to hear him talk, and it included a copy of Runaway that he autographed for me. So I'll put that picture up and you can see that. This book, Gone for Good by Harlan Coben, Alice recommended because it's about two brothers, and Fred Claus, the Christmas movie, is about, Santa Claus's brother. He's like this disgruntled, angry brother of, Father Christmas. So in Harlan Coben's book, Gone for Good, it begins with the main character, the narrator, Will, and Will has a pretty together life. I'm thinking like in his 30s, and he's got a decent job. He works for Covenant House, I think is what it's called. And it's like a nonprofit where he goes through New York City trying to help runaways, teen runaways. And he has this friend named Squares. And Squares, it kind of reminds me of Myron Voltaire and Win, except it's Will and Squares. It's the same dynamic. But in this book, Will has this friend Squares who's very street savvy, very independent and, very protective of his friend Will. It's hard. I keep looking to see Will because there's Win and Myron Voltaire, and there's Will and Squares in this book. But it's a really similar dynamic, and I liked that. I liked that a lot because, I'm a big Myron Voltaire fan. And Will has a similar sort of personality to Myron Voltaire. He's very sensitive and thoughtful. And he goes around trying to help runaways in New York City. And he has this girlfriend that volunteers there. Her name is Sheila. And he's very in love with Sheila. And suddenly, Sheila disappears. At 5 o'clock in the morning, she leaves him a note. I think it says, "Love you always." And she's gone. Then the FBI come around looking for Sheila, and they're questioning they're questioning Will, and Will doesn't even know yet that she's missing, but it turns out the FBI, they are correct, she's missing. And so they're looking for her, and they kind of bully Will, which, you see that in Harlan Coben books, the FBI agent, good guy, bad guy, we're not really sure. There's like this tension between the FBI and Will and his friend Squares. Because, of course, Will and Squares are looking for his girlfriend, Sheila, and the FBI are looking, and they're not really working together. But Will just wants to know what happened to his girlfriend. And come to find out, his girlfriend's disappearance is perhaps connected to a murder that happened when he was in college. He had this love that it was like his first love. He's only had two loves, this love from college and Sheila. And this love from college, she was murdered in her basement. And apparently Will's brother, Ken, was at the murder, and his blood was found at the murder scene, and he disappeared. He went missing. So everyone suspects him as the killer of the girl. The girl's name is Julie. So Will was in love with Julie when they were in college, and then Julie ends up murdered, and Will's brother Ken flees the scene, and his blood is at the murder site, and the girl's been killed, and so everyone thinks he's killed her, and he's disappeared. And so Will thinks, flash forward 10 plus years, and Will thinks his brother is dead when his girlfriend Sheila disappears. And come to find out, Sheila's disappearance is somehow connected to Will's brother's disappearance and the murder of his first girlfriend, Julie. So, can Will and Squares find Sheila, or is it too late? Is the brother dead or alive? You have to read the book to find out. I highly recommend this book, Gone for Good. And I noticed, of course, after I read it, I'm not a TV person. I might as well live under a rock. But I noticed that yet again, this is a book that's been turned into a Netflix series. So I think I put that on my thumbnail, the picture from the Netflix series instead of this picture, because they're both book covers for the book. I will say another thing about this book that I really enjoyed, and I think that's why Julie recommended this book to me, is because you never really can be sure, are you friend or foe? Are you a good guy or a bad guy? And sometimes you can be both. And I love that about the book. I love that about the character development, that, there are really evil characters capable of good things, and there are really good characters capable of very evil things. And you definitely see that in this book. But in this book, in Gone for Good, one thing I really liked about this book is that one of the characters who, I won't say who because I don't want to give you any spoilers, but one of the characters who I did not suspect of ever doing anything evil, to me, did the most evil thing of all. And I won't give that away except to say, if you've read the book and you're wondering what I mean, think about toward the very end, the conversation on the baseball field. I thought that the conversation on the baseball field points to what I thought was one of the most horrific decisions made in the book. And I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking, that decision had a domino effect on all the other bad things that occurred in the book. And so I think it's interesting how one bad choice can have such an effect on so many other people. And it could be a very well-meaning, well-intentioned choice, but there's right and there's wrong. And to me, if you cross the line and you do something really wrong, even if it's for the right reasons, I don't know. Personally, I think that's a serious matter. And when that happens in the book, it has a tremendous impact on the story. And I loved that about the story too, because it really left me thinking much longer than after I finished the book, much later than, when I finished the book, I was laying awake thinking about that. I was thinking like, it's interesting. That one decision caused all these other terrible things to happen. And I wonder if when the character made that bad decision, they had really thought it through and thought through all the unintended consequences that could occur. And so I really appreciate that about this book, Gone for Good. I appreciate that it was very thought-provoking. And once again, Harlan Coben kept me guessing. Now, I've read a lot of Harlan Coben, so I could figure out quite a bit of it, but there were still things at the end of the book that I thought, wow, I didn't see that coming. And I love that about Harlan Coben books because I've read so many of them and yet he still surprises me. So I highly recommend Gone for Good by Harlan Coben. Hey everybody, I'm back. Did you miss me? It's been a few days because it's very hard for me to film in my house. I have other people and 2 cats that just run interference. And so I try to film when other people are out. And I finally got a moment where the house I had to myself. So I wanted to talk about the second book recommended by Alice at Alice and the Giant Bookshelf because I just love Alice. The Unheard by Nicci French is the other book that she recommended. And I have to tell you, one thing that I thought was really interesting about this book was that Nicci French is a married couple. So Nicci, I think, is the pseudonym of the English wife and husband, Nicci Gerard and Sean French. So I thought that was really cool, a collaboration between husband and wife to write about some very dysfunctional relationships in families. But I really did love this book, and I thank you very much, Alice, for recommending it. So let me tell you about it. This is the story of Tess. Tess is a mom. I want to say single mom, but she's not divorced. The father is in the picture, but they had a child together and they lived together as husband and wife with the child for years. And then the little girl, Poppy, is 3. I guess when they were 2, Tess and Poppy's dad, whose name is Jason, they split up. They all seem to have this perfectly healthy, sharing kind of relationship where they share custody and share responsibilities and everyone gets along and everything seems great. When suddenly Poppy, who's now 3, their daughter, Tessa's little girl, she draws a very violent picture of a woman who seems to have been murdered, maybe thrown down some steps. It's hard to tell because it's a 3-year-old. And then Poppy starts waking up with night terrors and wetting the bed. And then she mutilates her favorite doll. And there's just things that aren't quite right. Poppy is definitely acting strange. And as the mother, Tess is really worried about this. And people seem to be treating her like she's this hysteric, she's overreacting. This is just, typical stuff for a 3-year-old. I have to tell you, I have raised two boys. I was a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, and I never saw like night terrors, bedwetting, just really crazy behavior. I've said in another video, children are to be seen and heard and believed. I feel strongly about that. So I, of course, was, team Tess throughout the book. And Tess is trying very hard to understand her daughter's behavior, and she becomes very suspicious of, everyone around her. She's not sure, who was around her daughter that would cause her daughter to act this way. And people are being pretty dismissive, like, oh no, that's just, a phase, she's 3 years old. And the thing I really enjoyed about this book, especially as someone who loves kids and, has kids, and teaches kids, much of the story unravels through the eyes of a 3-year-old girl. And the only person who seems to be taking her seriously is her mother, Tess. And so Tess is trying to figure out why her daughter is acting the way that she does. And, she's trying to solve what she believes is a murder. And the police are like, there's no crime. There's a drawing by a 3-year-old, go away, and she's like, but my daughter, and she's just really a mama bear fighting fiercely for her daughter, and it was hard not to love her. I liked another thing about this book was that Tess was very, in the beginning, very trusting, and you see throughout the book that her relationship with Poppy's father is not quite as perfect as Tess had thought, now that they're apart and they're sharing the raising of Poppy, and Tess is starting to question everybody. Her friends are starting to say, well, actually, I never really liked that guy, Jason, the dad. And so, Tess starts to question some of the decisions she's made in the past and reevaluate herself and her identity and her response to things around her. And I liked watching Tess kind of come into her own. She sort of grew into a stronger woman. And I want to share with you a passage. I wouldn't be an English teacher if I didn't want to share a passage. I love this passage in the book where Tess is confronting her, he wasn't her ex-husband, he was her ex, the father of Poppy. So Tess does get the police to question some of the people that have been around Poppy. She finally convinces the police to start questioning people. And so, of course, they question Poppy's father, Tess's ex. And he's very angry about that because we start to find out as the story unfolds, he's not the Prince Charming we had originally thought early in the book. So this is not a spoiler, but it is a passage later in the book. So I want to share that with you. So he pushed another stale slice into his imperious fist, talking about bread. They're feeding the ducks. And they knew about the marches we used to go on, and his voice lowered again. They asked about my personal life. Now he's angry with Tess because the police have questioned him. So the police, how dare they ask him about his personal life? You mean your affairs, she said. So that's a little tiny spoiler. She does find out as the story unfolds that he was unfaithful when they were together. My affair. Just one? I had an affair, and that was wrong. But you can't go calling in the police and suggesting I killed a woman because you want some kind of revenge. Is Daddy angry? Poppy was back. So they're feeding the ducks, and they keep sending Poppy off to feed the ducks because they're arguing. No, Daddy isn't angry. Last bit of bread, and then I must go. I waited till Poppy moved away again. Is that what you think? I'm doing all of this to get back at you? Either that or something's very wrong with you. Has it occurred to you that there's a third possibility, that I'm genuinely anxious about Poppy and genuinely scared that she is in some way connected to what happened to this woman? I corrected myself. Then I am just trying to stop something happening or to find out about something that did happen, something that feels horribly close to home, to our home, to Poppy. It feels like a nightmare that I keep trying to tell you about, and you're not paying attention. I stopped abruptly. Poppy looked around at me, and I smiled reassuringly. Have you ever had those conversations where you're like two adults, everything's fine, dear. You know, like the adults are fighting, but every time Poppy walks up, they have to act like they're not. And see, throughout the book, she's like, oh, what about this? What about that? You know, she's kind of a feeble woman in the beginning of the book. So I love this moment of like clarity for her. She says, you know what? I don't really care what you think, I said. And I found as I said it that it was true. Poppy is in a vulnerable and anxious state. That matters. A woman is dead. That matters. Other stuff, not so much. We stared at each other, and for a fleeting moment, something unexpected passed between us, a glimmer of recognition, a softening. I saw that if one of us held out a hand of friendship, the other would take it. I almost thought we could laugh together at our anger and absurdity. I could sense him seeing it too. One word, one gesture from either of us. The moment passed like the sun going behind a cloud. But I did love that passage because you have to read the book to see. But in the beginning, the mom's kind of like, oh, my daughter's upset. What do you think? What do you think? I don't know. And she's, nervous, and that's normal and to be expected. But then the more she fights for her daughter, the more she starts sticking up for herself too. And I liked that about the book. But it's definitely a really fascinating mystery. Was someone killed? And if they were killed, was it relevant to this 3-year-old and her bizarre behavior? And if so, like, why? Did she witness something? Does she know something? How would that occur? Because her mom, Tess, is with her most of the time. So it was a really good book. I highly recommend it. And I love watching Alice and listening to her recommendations. I am enjoying listening to all the recommendations from everyone out there on BookTube. And this is just my little way of saying thank you. And, I'm really enjoying reading. I'm enjoying hearing what you're reading. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.